The Victoria Line is a weird one. It's a line that was decades in the planning, and by the end it bore virtually no resemblance to the line it started out as. The starting point was the County of London Plan of 1943, which I've already done a video on, and I hope I've remembered to put a link to in the description below. This was an ambitious scheme to put all of London's suburban railways underground. It was a complicated and controversial proposal that would have involved a radical reshaping of the transport network, including the demolition of several bridges and 4 major stations. Inevitably, a committee was formed to discuss it. While they were deliberating, they put out a number of ideas for new lines. One was code-named Route 8. This was intended to serve a number of purposes. The primary idea was that it would link the railway lines owned by the Southern Railway in South London and those owned by the London and North Eastern Railway in North East London. It wasn't going to be an underground line per se, but rather a main line in a tunnel, not dissimilar to the Thameslink or Northern City line today. It would meet the Southern Railway at East Croydon and the London and North Eastern at Finsbury Park. From East Croydon it would have gone straight through Brixton, Stockwell, Vauxhall and Victoria. Almost identical to the Victoria line, minus Pimlico. Pimlico was a bit of an afterthought on the Victoria line though, and I did a video on that, which again I'll link below. From Victoria, it would have taken a slightly different route. The next 2 stations would have been Hyde Park Corner and Bond Street. Then we're back on course with stations at Euston and King's Cross before skipping Highbury and Islington and terminating at Finsbury Park. The original plan wasn't going to extend any further, so no stations at Seven Sisters, Tottenham Hale, Black Horse Road or Walthamstow Central. As well as connecting 2 separate railways, the line was also intended to relieve congestion on the existing tubes, particularly the District and Circle around Victoria and the northern section of the Piccadilly line. It would also provide a quick route from Victoria to King's Cross. You could do this via the Circle line, but it was slow and, well, circuitous. So why did we get the Victoria line instead of this cross-London railway route? Well, it was really an administrative thing. In 1948, Britain's railways were nationalised as a single organisation, creatively named British Railways. The committee formed a working party with British Railways to discuss Route 8, because while government organisations have their shortcomings, they are really good at producing red tape. The Working Party had different priorities to the good folk on the aforementioned committee. The committee had to consider lots of other factors. They had the wider aim of getting rid of all surface railways in London. All the Working Party had to think about was how to get Route 8 to do what Route 8 does, i.e. get from north to south and relieve traffic. They weren't about looking decades ahead, which the County of London plan was, but to the immediate needs of the city. They abandoned the notion of directly connecting the mainline railways because that wasn't important to them. With that out of the way, an underground line would be quicker and cheaper to build. For instance, it could use tunnels that already existed at King's Cross. Cheap was good. In the post-war era, with the rise of car ownership, roads were considered to be the future and the government just couldn't be bothered with all this public transport malarkey. In fact, the Transport Minister, Harold Watkinson, seriously asked if the money requested for the new line should be spent on car parks instead. London Transport fought, arguing that it would relieve congestion on the tube, that it would relieve road traffic, that it would decrease the number of buses required, that it was needed for increasing suburban traffic, and various other arguments until the government said, fine, in 1959. Further planning and experimental work went ahead. The line was now to go to Walthamstow, and an experimental tunnel was dug between Finsbury Park and Seven Sisters. Oxford Circus was seen as a better interchange than Bond Street, and the new alignment meant that they could connect with the Piccadilly line at Green Park instead of Hyde Park Corner. And after a few intermediate stages, that's the line we got. Hi all, I hope you enjoyed this cut-price tale from the tube. If you did, then please do hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon to be kept up to date with what I'm doing. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank my marvellous donors for all their help in keeping this channel going. If you'd like to join them, there's a link to my Ko-fi and to my Patreon in the description below. As for the future, I'm thinking maybe I should look in more depth into the question of what happened to routes 1 to 7. And I'll see you again very soon for another tale from the tube.